I sat in the lawyer's office in downtown Phoenix, November sunlight cutting diagonally through the blinds and scattering mottled patches across the threadbare gray carpet. The air carried the faint smell of old paper mingled with the stale breath of cold coffee in a paper cup abandoned on the table. I wore the only shirt I still owned that wasn't wrinkled, sleeves rolled up because of the heat. Sweat still crept warm down my spine even though the air conditioning was fighting for its life. My name is Aaron Mitchell, 29 years old, cashier at the Walmart on the edge of town. Never in my life had I imagined I would one day sit here, in a lawyer's office, waiting for my grandfather's will to be read. Grandpa Raylan Mitchell died exactly 1 week ago. Stroke. I was the last person whose hand he held in the emergency room. His fingers were ice cold but still squeezed mine gently as if trying to say something. I didn't cry then. I only nodded as though I understood everything he hadn't managed to say. My parents sat in the chairs across from me. My father, Martin Mitchell, 58, hair gray and unkempt, wearing the same old suit he wore to other people's weddings, kept flicking through his phone as if he were waiting for a bus instead of waiting to hear what his own father had left him. My mother, Matilda, 56, dyed blonde hair already showing dark roots, sat with her legs crossed, red painted nails tapping out a restless rhythm on the armrest. They hadn't spoken a word to each other since stepping into the room, nor to me. I knew what they were thinking. Grandpa only had that one old wooden house up in the mountains 3 hours away, leaky roof, rotting walls, mice running everywhere. For them, today was just a formality. Sign the papers and go home. They wanted to get it over with quickly. I didn't. I wanted to hear every single word, whether he had left me anything or not. The lawyer, Kenneth Wardle, entered. Tall, thin, gold-rimmed glasses, voice slow as if afraid of shattering the air. He set a thick folder on the desk, opened it, flipped a few pages, and cleared his throat. The last will and testament of Raylan James Mitchell, executed on the 12th of October last year, duly witnessed and notarized. I tried to swallow. My heart pounded the way it did when I stood in line waiting for my paycheck. I wasn't hoping for money. I was hoping he had written something for me. Just one line would have been enough. A sentence like, "Aaron, I'm proud of you," or "The cabin is yours." Anything so I would know he was still somewhere, still watching me. Mr. Wardle began reading the formal preamble. Long legal sentences I barely understood. Then he paused. Just for a second, but the whole world went silent. The entire residue of the estate, including all securities investments, bank accounts, real property, and any related rights and interests, with a current estimated total value of $1,100,000,000 United States dollars, is bequeathed in its entirety to Martin Mitchell and Matilda Mitchell as the sole and equal co-heirs. The room suddenly felt airless, as though every molecule of oxygen had been sucked out. I heard my mother gasp, a sharp, involuntary intake of breath, the dry clack of my father's phone hitting the floor. I turned. Mom had her hand over her mouth, eyes wide like they might fall out, tears glistening. Not from grief for Grandpa, but from that number. Dad shot to his feet, his chair scraping back with a bang. Face flushed crimson, mouth open, but no words coming. His hands shook, then, suddenly, he laughed. A hoarse, cracked laugh like someone who'd just won the lottery in the middle of the street. 1,100,000,000? Dad stammered, voice pitched high and unfamiliar, startling me. He turned to Mom. They threw their arms around each other and jumped like children, completely forgetting the lawyer was still sitting there, forgetting I existed at all. I sat frozen. $1,100,000,000. I couldn't process what I'd heard. I blinked over and over, trying to convince myself I'd misheard. Grandpa had that much money? He'd lived in that rotting cabin, chopped his own firewood, ate peanut butter sandwiches, sent me $200 every Christmas with a note that said, "Don't tell your parents." All those years he'd hidden it, hidden everything. But then I smiled, genuinely, the first real smile in a week, I watched my parents hugging and bouncing, tears streaming down Mom's cheeks, Dad laughing so hard he started coughing. I felt relief. After all the years of being broke, after all the times Dad grumbled because we couldn't afford to fix the car, Mom complained because she couldn't buy a designer purse. At last, they had it. They'd never fight over utility bills again. They would be happy. That's what I thought, until Dad turned and looked at me. That look wasn't the look of a father who'd just won the lottery. It was the look of a stranger, cold, distant, as if I'd sat down at the wrong table. Mom was the same. She wiped her tears, straightened up and smiled. But it was a smug smile. The smile of someone who had just stepped onto a higher rung and left everyone else below. She glanced at me for 1 second, and in that second I clearly saw contempt flash in her eyes. A chill ran down my spine despite the stifling heat. Dad sat back down, but he was no longer the dad who used to nag me about buying Starbucks. He sat tall, chin lifted as if that leather chair had become a throne. Mom smoothed her hair, adjusted her collar, her gaze sliding over me the way one glances at a delivery guy. Mr. Wardell continued reading the minor clauses, taxes, transfer procedures, etc. I stopped listening. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, and a cold, unmistakable certainty creeping into my mind. Today was not the day my parents became rich. Today was the day I lost my family. I looked at them one more time. They were whispering excitedly to each other, eyes shining. Not one of them looked at me. Not a single comforting glance, not a single "Son, don't worry, we'll take care of you." Nothing. Just the smiles of strangers who had just inherited a fortune. And deep inside, I knew the nightmare was only beginning. The change came faster than I could have imagined. Just 1 week after the will reading, my parents had transformed completely. Dad quit first. He called his boss from the living room, voice booming so I could hear every word. "I'm done. Effective today. Your company doesn't need me anymore, and I sure as hell don't need you." He hung up, roared with laughter, and slapped Mom on the shoulder. "Done. From now on, I'm a billionaire." Mom quit the very next day. She came home early, tossed her restaurant uniform straight into the trash, and declared, "No more waiting on anybody. I'm the boss now." They sprawled on the sofa all day, watching TV, scrolling through real estate listings and luxury cars, chattering nonstop about their new life. The money hadn't even hit their accounts yet. The bank paperwork was still processing. But they were already spending as if the $1,100,000,000 was burning a hole in their pockets. They maxed out credit cards, took out bridge loans citing imminent inheritance, sold the old car for peanuts, and rolled up in a gleaming Mercedes that Dad honked triumphantly through the neighborhood so everyone would see. Mom went on manic shopping sprees, Louis Vuitton bags, Louboutin heels, designer dresses, gold jewelry clinking on every wrist. The house overflowed with branded bags, shoeboxes, and towering piles of receipts. They ate at fancy restaurants every night, ordered the most expensive delivery, and swapped cheap beer for French wine. And their attitude, God, it was horrifying. At first it was just arrogance. Dad lounging on the sofa, feet on the coffee table, proclaiming, "From now on, I don't bow to anyone. I'm a billionaire." Mom admiring herself in the mirror, stroking her fresh dye job. A woman this gorgeous shouldn't have had to wait tables. What a waste. Then they started looking at me like I was a loser, a burden they'd been forced to carry. Meanwhile, I still went to work, still handed over my entire paycheck to Mom for safekeeping. But now, when she took the money, she smirked. "What are we supposed to do with these pennies? We're about to have $1 billion. We don't need your pocket change." Dad sneered every time I came home in my supermarket uniform. "Still slaving away at that dead-end job? Couple of bucks an hour, then come home to mooch off us. Guys your age are CEOs driving Lambos." Every meal became pure hell. Dad openly insulted me. This kid only knows how to scan groceries. His salary couldn't even buy one of these dinners. He jabbed a finger at the plate of Wagyu beef Mom had just bought. "Now that we're rich, maybe it's time you stood on your own 2 feet instead of sponging off us forever." Mom jumped in, voice sharp as a blade. "Exactly. 29 years old, still living with mommy and daddy, working some low-class job. People your age are rich, independent, own houses and cars. And you? Sigh, such a disappointment. They dragged up the past to smear me. We spent a fortune putting you through college, and what do? Scan barcodes? Even though I'd worked extra jobs to pay tuition myself, they never contributed a cent. You're just taking up space and running up the utility bills. Even though I'd been paying every bill for years, I kept my head down and ate, every bite sticking in my throat, every word cut like a knife. I had carried this family when Dad was sick, stayed up nights caring for him, handed over every paycheck. Now it was all erased, as if it had never happened. They sneered at me like I was an obstacle to their billionaire lifestyle. The contempt grew daily. Dad started taking phone calls on speaker, deliberately loud enough for me to hear. Yeah, the new house has to have at least 5 bedrooms. Oh, my useless son. Forget him. I'm not giving him a single dime. Mom went into my room without asking and threw out my stuff to make space for new things. I could feel it plainly. They were pushing me out of their lives, shaving me away slice by slice. I started dreading coming home. I stayed late at work, claiming overtime when really I just sat in the park staring at the yellow streetlights and wondering what I had done to deserve this. Then the day came, the day I will never forget. It was a Friday. I got off at 6. Phoenix autumn air was cool, but I was shivering. I drove my rattling old car home, still clinging to a stupid shred of hope that today they'd be different. Maybe they'd invite me to celebrate. Maybe they'd say, "Thank you, son, for everything you've done for us." I even bought a cheap bottle of wine, thinking we could open it together. But as I turned onto our street, I saw it immediately. My belongings, suitcases, cardboard boxes, clothes, books, my old laptop, even the photo of me and Grandpa, dumped in a heap on the front lawn like garbage. My freshly washed shirts lay in the dirt. The book Grandpa gave me had its cover torn. I slammed on the brakes, heart hammering, and ran over. My parents stood in the doorway, arms crossed, leaning against the frame like cold statues. Dad in a crisp new shirt, Mom dripping with the gold necklace she'd probably bought yesterday. They looked at me with zero guilt, zero pity, just cruel indifference, as if I were a trespasser. What is this?" I stammered, voice shaking with shock. Mom shrugged. "Your stuff. Take it." Dad tightened his crossed arms, voice ice cold. "From now on, you take care of yourself. We're rich. We're done feeding a parasite." I froze. My legs gave out. I had to lean against the wall to stay upright. "Dad, what are you saying? I'm your son." Dad gave a scornful laugh I'd never heard from him before, frigid and vicious. "Son, you're just a freeloader. 29, still living at home, working a nothing job for peanuts. We're about to live like royalty. There's no room for you." Mom cut in, voice like a razor. "Exactly. Go wherever. You're just crowding the place. We're selling this house and buying a mansion." I dropped to my knees, gathering things with trembling hands. The shirt Grandpa gave me for graduation was caked in mud. The book he left me had its cover ripped. I wanted to scream, to ask if they remembered the nights I nursed Dad through illness, the years I carried the family's debt. But my throat closed. Only tears fell. Dad delivered the final nail. "Don't come crawling back. You're not our son anymore. Get lost." I don't remember how I loaded everything into the car. When I stood up, night had fallen, wind slicing through me. I drove aimlessly around the city until midnight, when I finally found a rundown motel on the outskirts of Phoenix. 20 square meter room, peeling walls, creaking bed, shared bathroom down the hall. I collapsed onto the mattress, mind in knots. I stared at the cracked ceiling, listened to the couple fighting upstairs, the roar of semis on the highway, and thought, is this my new home? Me, Aaron Mitchell, 29 years old, thrown out by my own parents like a mangy dog, just because they got rich, and I knew this wasn't the end of the nightmare. Those days afterward, I threw myself into work like a madman. I picked up night shifts, weekend shifts, any shift that was open. The manager asked, "You okay, Aaron? You look like a zombie." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, boss. I just need the money." The truth was I needed to forget. Forget the sight of my belongings scattered on the lawn like trash. Forget Dad's ice-cold eyes when he called me a parasite. Forget Mom's contemptuous smile when she said I was useless. The moment my mind went empty, vacant for even a second, those images flooded back and cut into my heart like knives. So I worked. Worked until I collapsed, until I got back to the motel and passed out the instant my head hit the pillow, too exhausted to think. I lived on sandwiches and tap water. I didn't dare spend an extra dime. My phone stayed on silent. I didn't want to hear from my parents, though I knew they'd never call. They were busy living their royal life, busy shopping, busy bragging to the neighbors that they were finally rich. I only texted a couple of old friends, lying that I was moving and swamped with work. I didn't want anyone to know I'd been thrown out like a dog. The shame was crushing. Some nights I curled up in a ball, asking myself what terrible thing I'd done to deserve this. Those months passed in a meaningless blur. Then my 30th birthday arrived. I remembered how Grandpa, when he was still alive, would always call and sing happy birthday. Off-key, but with so much warmth that his raspy voice through the phone made me smile all day. Last year, he'd even mailed me a little cake with a handwritten note. "My grandson is all grown up, but you're still the little crybaby from back then. I'm so proud of you." Sitting in that motel room, I smiled at the memory, and then my eyes burned and my throat closed up. I got off early that day, asked the manager if I could leave at 3. On the way home, I stopped at a little bakery and bought the smallest, cheapest cake they had, with one crooked candle stuck in the bland white frosting. Back in the room, I locked the door, drew the curtains, set the cake on the rotting wooden table under the flickering fluorescent light. No friends, no family, no well wishes. Just me and that tiny cake, the smell of cheap vanilla mixing with the damp mold in the air. I lit the candle. The little flame danced, throwing shadows on the peeling walls. I stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Happy birthday, Aaron Mitchell, 30 years old." I took a deep breath and blew it out. The second the flame died, everything inside me shattered. Tears poured out uncontrollably. I slid to the cold floor and sobbed like a lost child. Sobbed from loneliness, from humiliation, from the fact that I never imagined I'd spend my 30th birthday like this. Alone in a stinking motel room, not a single soul beside me. No one remembered me. No one cared. Even my own flesh and blood parents had thrown me away like garbage the moment they got money. I cried until I had nothing left, then lay on the floor staring at the cracked ceiling while memories played like an old film in slow motion, every frame sharp enough to hurt. Before everything fell apart, I had a completely different life, one so peaceful and free that thinking about it now twists my guts with regret. After graduating with a degree in IT, I dreamed of starting a small company, but jobs were scarce, so I took the cashier position at the supermarket, the very job my parents now despise. Back then, I was proud of it. I rented a tiny 15-square-meter studio downtown. Clean, cozy, big windows that caught the morning sun. Every morning I'd brew coffee, play soft jazz, and work at my little desk with my old laptop. Evenings I'd cook simple spaghetti or chicken salad, watch something on Netflix, walk in the park on weekends, read, meet friends for a beer. My salary wasn't high, about $3,000 a month, but I lived frugally and covered everything myself. No debt, no pressure from anyone. Peaceful. Truly free. I thought I'd live that way forever, alone but happy, carrying no one on my back, judged by no one. Then one afternoon, everything ended with a single phone call. I was at the supermarket scanning groceries when my phone buzzed like crazy. "Mom," I answered, and her voice came out distorted with panic. "Aaron, your dad had a heart attack. He's in the ER. Come quick, please." I dropped everything and ran to my car without telling my manager or colleagues. On the drive, I kept calling back, but she didn't pick up, only sobbing voicemails. My heart pounded, sweat poured off me, my mind racing to the worst possibilities. I ran red lights, honked like a maniac, praying I'd make it in time, praying Dad was still breathing. I sprinted into the ER. Mom was slumped on the hallway floor, hair wild, face smeared with tears and snot. The moment she saw me, she threw herself into my arms and wailed, "Your dad. He almost died." I held her, my chest crushed with pain. I spoke to the nurses, then the doctor pulled me aside. Thankfully, Dad had stabilized, a mild heart attack. He'd need to stay a few more days for monitoring, expensive medication, possibly a stent if it recurred. I didn't hesitate. I took unpaid leave, emptied my savings to cover the initial hospital bills, thousands gone in days. I worked mornings, then raced to the hospital every afternoon and evening, sitting by Dad's bed, wiping his face, spoon-feeding him thin porridge while the machines hissed around him. Mom sat in the corner, pale as a ghost, muttering, "We're finished. Where will we get the money for all this?" I never complained. I just wanted Dad to live. I stayed awake night after night, eyes ringed black like a raccoon, but I smiled when he opened his eyes and saw me. "I'm here, Dad. You're okay. I'll take care of everything. Just rest." 3 weeks later, he was discharged. The doctor gave strict instructions: 24/7 care, blood pressure checks 3 times a day, medication on schedule, strict diet, no stress. Mom went white as paper. She pulled me into the hallway, grabbed my hands with trembling fingers, and begged through sobs, "I can't do it, Aaron. I'm terrified. I have work and I'm not strong. Please move back home. Help me, I'm begging you." She shook with tears. I looked at her, then thought of Dad in the wheelchair, so frail it broke my heart, his weak voice calling my name. My resolve melted. "Okay, I'll move back. I'll help you take care of him." And just like that, I gave up the independent life I loved. I gave notice on the studio, packed my things, and moved back into the old house. The same house I'd sworn as a kid I'd escape forever because it was filled with shouting and coldness. But love was stronger than reason. I pitied Dad's illness. I pitied Mom's helplessness. From that day on, I became the sole pillar holding everything up, dragging the whole family like an ox under the yoke. I worked all day, came home to cook Dad's bland soup, took his blood pressure, reminded him to take his pills, listened to him ramble about the past. At night, I slept on the sofa outside his room, jolting awake every time he coughed or turned over. Weekends, I took extra night shifts at another supermarket to afford the expensive supplements and vitamins the doctor prescribed. I handed my entire paycheck to Mom, saying, "Keep it to manage the household expenses." She nodded eagerly, eyes lighting up. "Good boy, Mom will hold on to it." And from then on, I almost never saw a dime again. My life became suffocatingly controlled. Even the smallest things required permission. I needed new shoes because my old ones were falling apart. Mom shook her head. "Not yet. We need the money for Dad's medicine." I wanted to grab coffee with an old friend. She blocked me immediately. Why waste money? Once the company had its year-end party, I hesitated forever before daring to ask, "Mom, could I have a few bucks for the office party? Just a few dozen dollars, everyone's going." She whipped around, face purple, and screamed like she was slapping me with every word. "Are you insane? Where do you think money comes from? Your father is seriously ill, thousands a month on medicine, and you want to party? Ungrateful brat, completely useless." Spittle flew in my face as she shrieked through the house. I stood frozen, pain choking me, tears threatening but swallowed back. A few dozen dollars and I was extravagant, ungrateful. Dad gradually recovered but stayed as cranky as ever. Worse actually, because illness made him irritable. "Soup too bland," he grumbled. I forgot his cigarettes, though the doctor had forbidden them. He roared. "Useless kid, good for nothing," he bellowed, even though I was carrying every burden, medicine, utilities, everything on my shoulders. I bit my tongue and endured, never talking back. I worked like an animal, slept like the dead, existed like a shadow in the house I grew up in. But not once did they say thank you. Not once did they look at me with pride or gratitude. Only complaints, only disdainful glances when I came home late in my wrinkled uniform reeking of sweat. It hurt beyond words that I had sacrificed everything, my freedom, my dreams, my money, my health, my youth, just to keep this family from falling apart. And they never once looked back, never once acknowledged what I'd done. They treated me like a talking servant, a convenient tool for hard times. And now that they had money, they threw me away without a second thought. And then it hit me. They had never truly seen me as their son. I was only ever a tool for them to use. I lay on the cold motel room floor, tears falling silently again. The little cake had melted into a puddle long ago. The candle had gone out hours back. I was 30 years old, yet it felt as if I had lived 100 years of pain and 100 years of loneliness. I asked myself, Grandpa, can you see me? Where am I now, alone in this world? But at least I was still alive, still breathing, and still clinging to the thinnest thread of hope that life might someday be a little less cruel to me. I sat up, wiped my face with the sleeve of my dirty shirt, and stared at the ruined cake on the table. The white frosting had run in sad streaks across the rotting wood, looking as pathetic as my life felt right then. I laughed at my own fate. At least you're free now, Aaron, I told myself in a voice hoarse from crying. Free from that house, free from the insults, free from their contemptuous stares. You're free now. Free. And completely alone. Freedom sounded good in theory, but why did it feel so cold and hollow? I sighed, stood up, shuffled to the rusted sink, and splashed icy water on my face. The shock of the cold cleared my head a little. I looked at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Red eyes, gaunt cheeks, hair like a bird's nest. Keep going, I whispered to the stranger in the glass. Just a little longer. Life can't stay this bad forever. I prayed it was true. I silently begged the universe for even the smallest mercy, just enough reason to keep breathing. At that exact moment, in the dead silence of the motel room, there came a knock. 3 knocks, clear, deliberate. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. Who? Almost 10 at night. Who even knew I was here? None of my friends had this address. No co-workers. My parents? Impossible. They'd exorcised me from their lives. The motel owner wanting rent money? I swallowed hard, tiptoed to the door, and peered through the rusty peephole. A tall, thin man in a black suit and gold-rimmed glasses stood in the dim hallway. It was Kenneth Wardle, Grandpa's lawyer, the one who had read the will months earlier. I opened the door, so stunned I could barely speak. Mr. Wardle, how did you find me? He gave a small, professional but not unkind smile. Aaron. Took me a while, but I got the right place. May I come in? I have something I must deliver to you personally. Today of all days. I stepped aside and let him into the miserable room. He entered without the slightest grimace, even though the damp stench and clutter must have hit him immediately. He sat on the only plastic chair, placed his polished briefcase on the table, opened it, and withdrew a thick white envelope sealed with red wax bearing Grandpa's familiar little eagle crest. Here, he said, sliding it toward me. Raylan instructed me to place this in your hands only, on the exact day you turn 30. Not a day sooner, not a day later, and no one else was to know. Not even your parents. My heart skipped. My birthday. Grandpa remembered. Even in death, he remembered. I took the envelope with shaking hands. It was heavy, thick, and carried the faint scent of old paper and Grandpa's pipe tobacco. I broke the seal. My pulse was so loud I could hear it. Inside was a handwritten letter in Grandpa's familiar shaky but determined script, plus a spiral-bound stack of legal documents. I opened the letter first. The smell of old paper rose up like he had just finished writing it moments ago. My dearest grandson Aaron, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you are probably living through the hardest days of your life. I know everything, son. I have always known the true nature of Martin and Matilda, my son and daughter-in-law. They are selfish and greedy. They put money above family, above blood. I saw it when they were young. I don't hate them for it, but I could not let them hurt you, the only grandson I truly love and trust. The $1,100,000,000 everyone heard at the will reading was a shell. Every cent was collateralized, borrowed from banks years ago for investments. The banks will seize it everything soon. Your parents will be left with nothing but debt. I did it to teach them a lesson. Money cannot buy decency, and greed eventually eats its owner. My real wealth, $150 million, has been sitting in an independent trust I set up 20 years ago, built quietly from stocks I bought and held in secret. No one knew. Not Martin, not Matilda. The entire trust belongs to you, Aaron James Mitchell, and only you, because you are the only one I ever saw with a truly good heart, kindness, and the strength to use that money wisely. You deserve happiness. You deserve to live the life that is yours alone. The trust activates today, your 30th birthday. Consider it the biggest birthday present I ever gave you. I am so proud of you, Aaron. You were the greatest joy of my life. Forever yours, Grandpa Raylan. I read every word through streaming tears. My hands shook so badly the paper rattled. I flipped open the trust documents. First page. Sole beneficiary, Aaron James Mitchell. Activation date, today. Balance, $150 million. Grandpa's signature everywhere, countersigned and notarized by Mr. Wardell. I looked up at the lawyer. His own eyes were red. He nodded. It is all completely legal, Aaron. As of this moment, you are the sole heir. The banks are ready to transfer whatever you need whenever you need it. Raylan planned every detail years ago. He was waiting for this day. I couldn't speak. I just sat there clutching the letter to my chest. Grandpa, the only person in my family who had ever really seen me, understood me, loved me, had protected me to his very last breath. He hadn't just saved me with money. He had saved me with the one thing no one else ever gave me: unconditional love. Mr. Wardell stayed a few more minutes, then excused himself. It was getting late. I sat there in the motel room so quiet I could hear the drip-drip from the broken shower head down the hall, clutching the letter to my chest as if it were Grandpa himself. The trust documents lay beside me, but I hadn't even begun to process the $150 million. Right now there was only the letter. Grandpa's trembling handwriting, and the faint smell of old paper laced with the pipe tobacco he smoked every evening. Childhood memories rushed in without warning, like someone had flipped on an old projector in my head. Frame by frame, so vivid I could hear the laughter, the crying, the wind rattling through his mountain cabin. My family had never been dirt poor. Dad had an office job. Mom waited tables. We had enough to eat and sometimes a little left over for toys. But the house was always cold, not in temperature but in spirit. Even as a little kid, I knew what it meant to be lonely inside four walls. It wasn't lack of money. It was lack of warmth. Lack of the feeling that your parents actually saw you. Dad, Martin, was always busy. Busy with work, friends, drinking. When he came home, he collapsed on the sofa, watched TV, and snapped at everything. He loved comparisons. Me versus the neighbor's kid, the co-worker's kid, some random boy he saw on the street. Their kid gets straight A's and plays soccer like a pro. You? Just a troublemaker, he'd yell, no matter how hard I tried. It was never enough. I remember bringing home a report card full of A's, beaming with pride. He glanced at it and said, "That's worth bragging about. Jason next door gets A+ and plays piano." I stood there, the paper shaking in my hand, feeling like I'd been slapped without a hand ever touching me. After that, I learned not to show off. I learned silence. Mom was different. She didn't yell much, but she was colder. Few words, fewer smiles, almost no hugs. I can't remember the last time she hugged me. Maybe when I was tiny. She came home exhausted from the restaurant, irritated by rude customers and small tips. Caring for me felt like a chore to her. Eat, sleep, study. That was the full extent of our daily conversation. She never asked if I was happy, if someone was bullying me, if I liked a certain food, I was a ghost in my own home, gliding silently through the rooms growing up unnoticed. The clearest memory is from when I was 8, school event, pouring rain. Every other kid got picked up. I sat huddled under the overhang in a soaked raincoat, hugging my backpack. 1 hour, 2 hours. I was freezing and starving but refused to cry. Finally, my parents showed up, almost 3 hours late. I ran to them, expecting arms around me and apology. Instead, Dad snapped, "Why didn't you walk home? You're big enough?" Mom sighed. "Next time, take the bus. I'm busy." I sat in the back seat, rolled the window down, let the rain slap my face so the tears would blend in. From then on, I learned to get home alone, handle everything alone, patch my own scrapes. In that bleak childhood portrait, there was only one bright spot: Grandpa Raylan. He was the only one who truly saw me. Every weekend, like clockwork, his battered old pickup would roll up, honk twice. I'd bolt out the door before my parents could say a word and leap in. He'd grin, voice gravelly, "Where's my boy? Hop in." For 2 days a week, I escaped that icy house. His mountain cabin, 3 hours from Phoenix, was my paradise. Leaky roof he patched himself, rotting walls he repainted, mice he trapped. To me, it was warmer than any mansion. He cooked for me. Smoky grilled meat, mashed potatoes from his own garden, lopsided cookies that tasted better than anything store-bought. He told stories, army days, meeting Grandma the week he lived on dry bread. He taught me to fix engines, build tables, grow tomatoes and celery. "A man's gotta stand on his own 2 feet, Aaron," he'd say, hands black with grease, eyes shining. He asked about everything. "Happy today? What do you want Grandpa to cook? Anyone picking on you? I'll handle it." He remembered I liked sugar-free vanilla ice cream, that I was afraid of the dark, so he left a nightlight, that my birthday was exactly on the day. Even when my parents forgot, he hugged me, big, tight, tobacco and pine-scented hugs. I'd fall asleep on his shoulder by the fireplace while he sang off-key, feeling safer than I ever did at home. The older I got, the clearer their indifference became. They never asked about school, never cared if I had a girlfriend, never celebrated my college acceptance. I handled it all. Cooking from age 13, laundry, bus to school, convenience store job from 16. They treated me like a boarder. The day I got into college, partial IT scholarship, I came home excited. Dad grunted, "Uh-huh," and kept watching TV. Mom said, "Good, pay for it yourself." No hug, no celebratory dinner. Only Grandpa drove down, wrapped me in a bear hug until I choked up. "My boy did it. I'm so proud. Chase your dreams, don't look back." All 4 years of college, I studied and worked, slept 3 hours a night, lived on sandwiches, but I was proud because I did it alone. My parents called every few months. "How's life? Got a paycheck yet? Good luck. We don't have much to spare, you understand?" They never sent a single dollar. Only Grandpa slipped me $200 every month with a handwritten note. "Don't tell your folks. So proud of you." Despite the grind, I drove up to see him once a month, 3 hours each way, bringing groceries, staying up late listening to his stories. He grew frailer, but still smiled. "You're everything to me, Aaron." Then the day he left, I was at the register when Mom called, voice breaking. Grandpa had a stroke in the ER. I dropped everything, sped to the hospital like a madman. I got there first. He lay there, machines beeping, hand ice cold but squeezing mine. He whispered, "Aaron, I'm proud of you. Live well." I held on, tears silent. He slipped away moments later, his hand still warm in mine. Now in this cramped motel room, clutching the letter he wrote before he died, every memory floods back and rips my heart in two. I cry, for a childhood without parental warmth, for years of lonely self-reliance, for the day he left before I could say I loved him more. But I also smile through the tears, because finally I understand. Grandpa was the only one who ever saw my worth. The only one who loved me unconditionally, no comparisons, no abandonment. He saved me, Not just today, but long, long ago. In the days that followed, I lived as if in a dream, the most beautiful and terrifying dream of my life. I left that wretched motel after just 1 week and moved into a small but clean apartment downtown Phoenix. Big windows that drank in the sunlight, a fully equipped kitchen, a mattress so soft that on the first night I lay there wondering if I was really in my own bed. Mr. Wardle handled every detail, activating the trust, transferring funds, advising on investments so the money would grow without taxes taking too big a bite. $150 million. The number still made my head spin every time I checked my bank account. I didn't go on a spending spree. I only bought essentials, new clothes, a reliable used car, and I started learning to code again. The dream I'd buried years ago. I signed up for online courses, bought a high-end laptop, and coded for hours without worrying about rent or food. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. One Saturday afternoon, I was sitting in my old familiar coffee shop, this time ordering a hot latte instead of the cheapest black coffee, when my phone buzzed. Mom's number. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding. How long had it been since they last called or texted? And they had said I was no longer their son. I almost hung up, but something soft inside me pressed answer. Aaron. Son. Save me. Mom's voice came through, warped, sobbing, panicked beyond recognition. This wasn't the arrogant woman who had thrown me out. This was the voice of someone drowning. Mom, what's wrong? I asked, my own voice betraying alarm. Dad snatched the phone. His voice was hoarse, trembling. Aaron, everything's collapsed, son. The banks. They're seizing it all. That $1 billion. It wasn't ours. It's all debt. Your grandpa tricked us. Son, save us. I went numb, even though I'd known this was coming. Sitting in the middle of a cozy cafe, soft music playing, the smell of toasted bread in the air, the world suddenly went dark. Grandpa's words echoed letter by letter. The banks will seize everything soon. I did it to teach them a lesson. I listened as my parents poured it out, sometimes screaming, sometimes whispering as if about to faint. In just 1 short month, they had spent like money grew on trees. Brand new Mercedes, 2 weeks in Hawaii, Mom's Louis Vuitton bags, Dad's Rolex, all-night parties with friends, bragging everywhere that finally our family is rich. They both quit their jobs, went to spas, dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, bought new furniture. They lived like real billionaires, never once reading the will carefully or asking Mr. Wardle a single question. Dad continued frantic. Letters from the bank keep coming. Men in black suits knocking at the door. Phones ringing day and night with debt collectors. Turns out the entire $1.1 billion was a shell. All the assets your grandpa left us were just collateral. I had learned this weeks earlier from Mr. Wardle. Grandpa's real fortune was the $150 million trust he left me. The $1.1 billion my parents inherited was a trap. And now, the grace period was over. Pay immediately or lose everything. We don't know what to do. They're threatening to take the house, everything. We'll be on the street, son. Mom broke into sobs, voice shaking with terror. My mind reeled. In just a few months, my parents had fallen from paradise to hell, from arrogant millionaires to penniless debtors facing foreclosure on their own home. I pictured them surrounded by their new luxury purchases, faces pale, staring at bank letters. I pictured Mom, the woman who once smirked as she threw me out, now begging bank officers for extensions. Dad, the man who said there was no room for you in our royal life, now trembling on the sofa, white as a sheet. Fate's cruelty chilled me. They had discarded me without mercy, dumped my belongings like trash, told me to get lost. Now they clung to me, the useless son they said had no future. You have money, don't you? Mom whispered, pleading. Neighbors are gossiping. Your grandpa left you something. You're our last hope. If you don't help, we'll die. We'll really be on the street. I was silent for a long, long time. I heard Mom crying, Dad wheezing in the background. Part of me wanted to laugh hysterically, to scream, "Now you remember me," to hang up and disappear forever. But I couldn't. Something in me, blood, duty, or just years of conditioned endurance, wouldn't let me. I need time to think," I said, voice dry. "There's no time, son," Mom screamed. "The bank is coming again tomorrow. Save us, please." "I need time," I repeated, then ended the call. I sat in the crowded cafe feeling utterly alone. My hand shook so badly I spilled the latte. The barista rushed over, I just shook my head, paid, and left. In the days that followed, Mom called relentlessly, 10 times a day, sometimes sobbing, sometimes recounting their misery, sometimes blaming me. "Dad's heart is acting up again. He's in the hospital, hundreds of dollars a day. Medicine is expensive. We're out of money for food. Neighbors are laughing. Friends turned their backs after we borrowed everywhere and can't repay. The house is about to be sealed. Son, how can you let your parents end up on the street? We gave you life." Every call was a knife twist. I lay in bed clutching Grandpa's letter, rereading it over and over. He had warned me. He knew their true nature. He did this to teach them. But had he considered me? That I would have to face these crocodile tears? I was torn apart. On one side, the still bleeding wounds, my things scattered on the lawn, the words, "Get lost." The contempt in their eyes the night they got rich. On the other, blood ties, the nights I stayed up nursing Dad. Mom's desperate pleas the first time he had the heart attack. No matter how cruel they were still my parents. The people who brought me into the world, however warped and selfish their love. I couldn't sleep. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man with dark circles and hollow cheeks. I wanted to help, just enough to clear their debt and let them survive. But then I thought, will they change? Or will they revert the moment the crisis passes and despise me again? I wanted to walk away, let them taste abandonment, but every time I heard Mom cry, I softened. I was trapped between love and betrayal, between old pain and filial duty, between being the good man Grandpa raised and not wanting to be the fool exploited once more. I held the phone, Mom's number flashing, afraid to answer. I knew if I did, I would give in. I knew if I didn't, I would regret it forever, and I still didn't know which side I would choose. Those days dragged on like hell. I didn't sleep, barely ate. Just lay on the bed in my new apartment, staring at the pristine white ceiling while my mind spun with 100 questions. I reread Grandpa's letter dozens of times as if he could give me a clear answer from those inked lines. He knew they were greedy, he had warned me. He did it to teach them a lesson. But he said nothing about what I was supposed to do when that lesson crashed down on me in the form of tears and begging. I imagined abandoning them. They lose the house, Dad's heart gets worse, Mom ends up on the street. How would I live with that guilt? I'd be truly unfilial even though they once treated me like garbage. But if I helped a lot, they'd revert to their old selves and despise me again the moment the crisis passed. And if I helped just a little, would it even be enough? I called Mr. Wardle. He listened calmly. "Whatever you decide is fine, Aaron. Raylan trusted you completely. But he also said, don't let your kindness be exploited again." That hit like a punch to the chest. I hung up and sat in silence for hours. Finally, after 10 sleepless days, I made my choice. I would help, just a small amount, enough to pay off the bank and survive the storm. Not because they deserved it, but because I didn't want to live haunted by the thought that I had pushed my own parents onto the street. And deep down, I still hoped naively that when they saw me help, they would remember the years I carried the family, feel shame, change, say sorry, even just once. I called Mom, her voice shattered with relief the moment she picked up. "Aaron, you're there. Save me, son." I took a deep breath. "Mom, come over with Dad. I need to talk in person. This afternoon work?" She sobbed yes immediately. I hung up, heart pounding. I tidied the already clean apartment, wiped the table, brewed coffee, bought cookies. I put on a white shirt and jeans, trying to look as put together as possible. I was terrified, but I believed, at least then, that everything could be resolved decently. That blood was still blood. They arrived on time. The first time in my life they were punctual. I opened the door. My parents stood there, looking pitifully haggard. Dad was skeletal, eyes ringed black, hair much grayer. Mom's eyes were swollen, hair a mess, wearing a ratty old shirt instead of designer labels. They stepped inside but offered no greeting. No, how are you living? No, nice place? No hug. Just eyes scanning the small but bright two-bedroom apartment, the brand new furniture. Then a contemptuous smirk, as if they still believed they were the real rich ones. Sit down, I said, forcing calm. Dad dropped onto the sofa, Mom beside him. They stared at me, eyes red but gleaming with expectation. I poured water, set out the cookies. Silence. Then I began. Grandpa left me a trust, $150 million. That was his real wealth, built quietly over decades. The billion you got, it was a shell, all collateralized. Grandpa explained everything in a letter. I spoke slowly, showed them a photocopy of the letter. At first they were stunned, faces drained of color, eyes wide in disbelief. Mom stammered, 150 million? Grandpa left it all to you? Dad grabbed the letter, hands shaking, rereading as if the words might change. I nodded. Yes, Grandpa said. He trusted only me. Silence for a few seconds. I thought they would cry. From shame. From realizing Grandpa had seen through them long ago. I waited for an apology, a thank you, a hug. But no. The shock vanished in seconds. Dad's face flushed crimson, eyes blazing with greed. Mom sat bolt upright, gaze sharp as a knife. Dad shot to his feet, took a step toward me, voice low and menacing. Good. Now you split it with us. Immediately. At least half. No, 2/3. That's Grandpa's money. We're his children. You're just the grandson. I choked, heart plummeting. Dad, what are you saying? Mom cut in shrill. Exactly. That money should have been ours. Grandpa was biased. Insane. To leave it all to you. You have no right to keep it. Who raised you? Who paid for your food, your school? Now you're rich and turn your back. Split it now. I froze, looking at them, my own flesh and blood. I saw strangers, faces twisted with greed. The shift was horrifying. In seconds, they went from desperate beggars to brazen extortionists. It felt like a slap. I fought to stay calm. I will help you with a small amount, enough to pay the bank and get by, about $2 million. I think that's enough to start over. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Bam! Face purple, veins bulging. 2 million? Are you insane? Ungrateful brat? Forgotten who gave you life? Where do you think you came from? Now you have money and look down on us? Give at least 100 million, or don't blame me for what happens next. Mom screamed. Yes, you're the greedy one, unfilial monster. We are the rightful heirs. Grandpa was wrong to leave it to you. If you don't split, I'll sue you. I'll hire the best lawyer and drag you to court. Let the world see what an ungrateful son you are. I stood frozen, my heart shattered. They had not only abandoned me, they were now ready to drag their own son to court, all for money. For the 150 million Grandpa left to the one grandson he trusted. For the first time in my life, I couldn't hold back. The rage, built up over decades, exploded. I stood, voice shaking but louder than ever. Sue me then! Sue your own child. Go ahead, let the court hear how you threw your son out like trash the moment you thought you were rich. Let them hear how I paid the debts, nursed Dad through illness, handed over every paycheck for years. Let them hear how you forgot my birthdays, left me waiting in the rain as a kid, treated me like a servant. Now you're broke, so you crawl back begging. And the second you see I have money, you demand it like thieves. You're not my parents anymore. You're just two greedy, selfish monsters that disgust me." I screamed everything I had bottled up. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't wipe them. My parents stood rigid, faces ashen. I pointed at the door. "Get out of my house. Right now. Never come back." Dad stammered something. Mom opened her mouth to curse, but I roared, "Get out! Get out of my life!" They shuffled to the door. Dad turned back, snarling, "You'll regret this. I won't let you get away with it," Mom wailed. "Unfilial beast. God will punish you." The door slammed. I stood there, panting, shaking all over. Then I collapsed to the floor and sobbed. For the first time, I saw it clearly. They could never change. Money only revealed their true nature, and that nature was bottomless cruelty. I felt chilled to the bone by my own parents, and I knew, from now on, I was truly an orphan. The days that followed were a new nightmare. This time not silent pain, but public knives stabbing me from every direction. Just hours after they left my apartment, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Texts, calls, social media notifications poured in. First came my aunt, Mom's younger sister, screaming through the speaker, "Aaron, you ungrateful wretch. Grandpa left the fortune for your parents, and you stole it all, leaving them on the street? I'm ashamed to have a nephew like you." She hung up before I could reply. Then my uncle, Dad's cousin, sent a wall of text. "You bastard. Your parents raised you and now you let them drown in debt and illness while you live it up? You animal." Mom posted a long rant on her personal page with an old photo of Dad in the hospital bed, her crying beside him. Caption: "My own son has betrayed us. Grandpa left money for the whole family. He seized all $150 million, kicked us out, and now we're about to be homeless. Kids, please talk sense into him for us. We're old and have no strength left." Within hours, the post had over 100 shares. Comments: "Poor aunt and uncle. That unfilial scum, lightning won't even kill him. Cut him off, auntie." Dad posted tearful stories, tagging the entire extended family. "My son is rich now and forgot his parents. I'm in the hospital and he doesn't care." They embellished wildly that I used to steal from the house, that I was lazy and refused to work, that I manipulated Grandpa into leaving me the money. They painted themselves as the world's most pitiful victims and me as a heartless monster. In just a few days, I received dozens of abusive calls. Distant relatives, old neighbors, even a high school classmate. "How can you be so cruel, Aaron? I never thought you were this kind of person." Strangers messaged threats. "An unfilial rat like you deserves to die. If I see you, I'll beat you senseless." I blocked them all, but every buzz made my stomach clench. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just curled up in my apartment, staring out the window, wondering what I had done to deserve the whole world turning against me. But I stayed silent. No explanations, no rebuttals. I remembered Grandpa's words. "A righteous man doesn't need to explain much, Aaron. The truth will speak for itself." I believed it. Arguing now would only add fuel. It would make me look defensive. I endured even though every slander cut like a blade. Then Christmas Eve arrived. As in previous years, the extended family still has the celebration at the eldest uncle's house. The largest in the clan, twinkling lights, a ceiling-high tree, a table groaning with turkey, Yule log, mulled wine. Uncle had texted early. "No matter what, you're still my nephew. Come for Christmas." I hesitated for days, but I went. I wanted to face them one last time, and I wanted Grandpa, if he was watching, to know I wasn't hiding. I wore a white shirt and slacks, drove through Arizona's biting winter night to the glowing house. Laughter spilled out from afar. I stepped inside, pine and cinnamon in the air. Jingle bells playing softly. Everyone turned. Eyes went from surprise to ice. Whispers started. I forced a smile, greeted a few people. Then my parents emerged from the back room. They pounced like they'd been waiting. Mom wailed into an aunt's shoulder. "There it is, sis. The unfilial brat. Who knows why it came?" Dad bellowed across the room. "This thing is no longer my son. I disown him as of now. He stole Grandpa's money and threw his own parents onto the street." The room fell dead silent. Then the whispers grew louder. Eyes on me, suspicion, contempt, distance. A younger cousin glared and turned away. I stood in the warmest room of the year, yet felt colder than ever. I lasted about an hour, endured the open slander, the murmurs of poor aunt and uncle, the snickers as I passed. But when Mom launched into her third tearful tirade, shrill voice claiming, "He kicked us out, we don't even have a penny," I snapped. I stood in the middle of the party, voice calm but loud enough for all. "Everyone, may I say a few words?" Dead silence. I took a deep breath and told the truth, everything. I told of the years I handed over every paycheck to Mom, the nights I stayed awake beside Dad's hospital bed, the times I was called useless while carrying the family. I told of the will reading, of being thrown out like trash the moment they thought they were rich. I told of Grandpa's letter delivered on my 30th birthday, the real trust, the trap he set to teach them a lesson. Then I pulled out the original letter, Grandpa's shaky but clear handwriting, and read it aloud, word for word. How he knew their true nature, the collateralized billion, the 150 million left solely to me because he believed in my honest heart. The room froze. Only the fireplace crackled. Then Uncle broke into sobs. An aunt covered her mouth, tears streaming. Another uncle stared at the floor. A great aunt rushed to hug me, sobbing. "My boy, I'm sorry. I believed the lies. You've suffered so much." Others began to speak, turning on my parents. "How could you treat your own son like that? You two are disgracefully greedy. What kind of parents are you? You've lost him forever." My parents went ashen, trembling. Mom tried to protest. "It's not like he says he's lying, Grandpa." But her voice cracked into nothing. Dad hung his head, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Their feeble excuses were shouted down instantly. The room erupted, not against me, but in my defense. They called my parents greedy, cruel, unworthy of the title parents. In the middle of it all, I spoke one last time. "I'm not telling this for revenge. I just want the truth known. And to honor Grandpa's kindness, I will use part of the inheritance to create the Raylan Mitchell Scholarship Fund for the hard-working but struggling children in our family. Not to show off, but because he taught me that true legacy is goodness." The entire room rose and applauded. Applause thundered, tears on many faces. They looked at me with real respect, with the love I had craved for decades. Uncle hugged me tight. "You are the pride of this family." My parents stood silently in the corner, two shadows, completely isolated in their own clan. For the first time in my life, I felt I truly had a family, and I knew Grandpa was smiling somewhere. After that Christmas night, my phone never stopped buzzing. No more curses, just apologies. Uncle called first, voice choking. "Aaron, I'm sorry, son. I believed the lies. I was stupid. Come visit any time, you're like my own child." Then aunts, uncles, cousins, one by one. They cried over the phone, saying the whole family had lain awake in shame and sorrow for me. Some even sent makeup money. I refused it all, saying only, "I just need you to understand." They didn't stop at calls. They came to visit. My modest two-bedroom apartment had never been so lively. Aunts, uncles, cousins brought cakes, wine, belated Christmas gifts. They sat for hours listening to my story, hugging me, weeping, blaming themselves for never noticing my suffering. The eldest great aunt held my hand. "You're the best grandson Raylan ever had. From now on, this family is your home." I smiled through happy tears. Word spread to the old neighborhood. Neighbors who once whispered unfilial brat now bowed politely when they saw me at the supermarket asking after my health. The old fruit seller on the corner pulled me aside. "Son, I heard everything. I'm sorry I spoke nonsense back then. You're a good boy, your grandpa must be so proud." I just smiled and bought an extra bouquet to take home. The vicious gossip vanished completely, replaced by respect, the kind reserved for someone who had won a long, hard battle. I began rebuilding my life step by step. I pursued the dream I'd buried for years, starting a tech company. I named it Raylan Tech, after Grandpa. Just a small startup at first, 5 employees, a rented office in Phoenix's tech district. We built management software for small businesses, the very thing I'd dreamed of in college before family debt swallowed my plans. I traveled alone for the first time, flew to the Grand Canyon, sat on the rim at sunset, the sky blazing red, and whispered, "Grandpa, I did it." I started going to the gym, eating clean, sleeping full nights. I smiled more, chatted easily with strangers. For the first time, I lived without looking over my shoulder, without asking permission, without fear of being scolded for wastefulness. Then one crisp late autumn afternoon, golden leaves swirling in the courtyard, the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood Mom. She was almost unrecognizable. Hair snow white, face gaunt, wrapped in a threadbare coat, eyes swollen. She looked at me and burst into tears. "Aaron, son, I'm sorry. Your dad is gravely ill, bedridden. The doctor says he needs heart valve surgery. I don't know where to turn. Save us one last time, please." I froze. My heart twisted. She was still my mother. I invited her in, poured water, sat and listened. Dad had severe heart failure. The surgery cost hundreds of thousands. They'd sold everything, borrowed everywhere, and now the house was truly about to be seized. She sobbed, fell to her knees, clutching my legs. "I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. Save your father." I looked into her eyes and saw it, the same calculating glint. Desperation for money, not genuine remorse. She didn't ask how I was living, didn't apologize for the Christmas slanders, didn't mention throwing me out, just money. Again, I gently helped her up, voice soft but firm. "Mom, I gave you chances. Many times. I was ready to help with a modest amount to clear the debt, but you demanded half the inheritance and threatened to sue me. You never truly apologized, never changed. You destroyed those chances yourselves. I can't help anymore. I have to protect the life I've built." She wailed louder, called me unfilial, slammed the table. But I simply opened the door. "Go home, Mom. I wish Dad a speedy recovery, but I can't help." She left in tears, hurling a few more curses over her shoulder. I closed the door, slid to the floor, and cried. Cried from pain, from the lingering tug of blood ties. But I knew this was the right choice, the only way to safeguard the rest of my life. From that day on, I cut contact completely. Blocked numbers, no messages, no inquiries. Not out of hatred, just to avoid returning to what had drained me dry. 2 years later, my life was a dream come true. I met Jayla Walton, the woman who would become my wife, an interior designer, gentle with crescent moon eyes and long honey brown curls. We started talking about office design, then coffee, then dating. I told her everything about my past, no secrets. She hugged me. "You're so strong, Aaron. I'm proud of you." We married on a golden autumn afternoon, inviting only close family and friends. My parents were not invited. Then Eliam was born, our beautiful boy with big round eyes and a grin that lit up rooms. I hold him, kiss his forehead 100 times a day, teach him to plant seeds, fix bikes, tell him stories about great-grandpa. I give him all the love I never received, tight hugs, endless praise, bedtime stories until he falls asleep on my chest. Raylan Tech is thriving. Over 50 employees now, a sleek new office, major contracts with corporations. I kept my promise and founded the Scholarship Fund, helping dozens of kids in the family and beyond chase their dreams. I have a warm home filled with laughter, a wife who loves me unconditionally, a son who is my greatest joy. I live a life that is truly mine, peaceful, happy, and complete. Grandpa, I did it. 3 years after my little boy, Eliam, was born, on a late winter morning when the Phoenix air still bit with cold and the sun was only a pale pink streak on the horizon, I felt my heart sink again, as if all the old years were waiting for me in some quiet corner. It was a weekend. Eliam had no preschool. Jayla suggested, let's take him to visit great-grandpa. It's been too long since we went to the cemetery. I nodded at once. Eliam bounced around the house hunting for his tiny shoes, singing jingle bells off-key though Christmas had passed 2 months earlier. I laughed and ruffled his hair. It's not Christmas today, buddy, but great-grandpa would love to hear you sing anyway. We drove out of the city on an empty highway, desert stretching gray on both sides under a thin veil of mist. Jayla sat beside me, fingers laced through mine. Eliam dozed in the back with the teddy bear Grandpa had sewn for me when I was small. I'd kept it all these years and now passed it to my son. I carried a bouquet of white daisies, Grandpa's favorite. He said they looked like children's smiles, simple yet radiant. The cemetery lay alone on a low hill, wind whistling through weathered headstones. We stepped out. Eliam clung to my hand, eyes wide at the graves. Is great-grandpa sleeping here, Daddy? I knelt, hugged him. Yes, he's resting, but he still sees us every day. I placed the daisies before the stone engraved, Raylan James Mitchell, birth and death dates, and the short line he chose himself. Live kindly, that is enough. Jayla stood beside me, arm around my shoulders. Eliam blew a kiss toward the stone, then dashed off, chasing a white butterfly. I stood in silence a long while, letting the cold wind slip through my coat, letting memories flood back like a tide. I remembered everything. The lonely childhood nights in that frigid house, the constant comparisons that shrank me inside, the day I was 8, standing soaked in the rain with no one coming. The years carrying debt, sleepless nights at Dad's sickbed, handing over every paycheck to Mom without a word of thanks. The meals laced with sarcasm, my belongings strewn on the lawn like trash. My 29th birthday, blowing out a candle alone in a stinking motel room. The abusive calls, the slanderous posts, the contemptuous stares that Christmas night, every knife my own parents drove into my heart. There were moments I thought I'd stay broken forever. Nights on the floor of my new apartment, clutching Grandpa's letter, crying until no tears remained, wondering why I had to endure so much. Seconds when I almost softened, almost turned back, almost let foolish kindness drag me into the abyss again. But I rose, not because I was born strong, because Grandpa saw worth in me when the world turned away. He had quietly prepared everything, not just money, but faith, so I could have today. I looked at Jayla. She was smiling at Eliam, helping him place a small stone on the grave in the old custom. Watching my wife and son, I understood what Grandpa taught me with his whole life. It was the kindness and perseverance he passed down that let me build this new life. Not the $150 million, not the nice house or successful company, but the ability to still believe in goodness after betrayal upon betrayal, the strength to forgive not for them but for myself, the courage to let go of those who only brought pain even if they shared my blood. I grasped a truth I once only dimly sensed. Blood does not always make family. True family is where you are loved without condition, respected, heard. Where you can be yourself without fear of judgment or abandonment. My parents never gave me that. Grandpa did. Jayla and Eliam do. The clan after that Christmas night does. That is my family. I promised myself, watching Eliam giggle as the butterfly landed on his hand. I will never repeat my parents' mistakes. I will never compare my son to anyone. Never be too busy for his hug. Never put money or pride above love. I will listen to him, praise him when he earns it, stand by him when he fails. I will teach him that a man is not measured by how much he earns, but by how he loves and protects those he cherishes. And I understand forgiveness better now. Forgiveness is not reopening the door to those who hurt you, not inviting more knives. Sometimes forgiveness is simply releasing the grudge so your own heart stops bleeding. I have let go. I no longer hate my parents. Only a faint pity remains for people imprisoned by their own greed. I wish them peace somehow, but from very far away. My story, from a lonely child to a man who has everything, shows one clear truth. Money never makes people better. It only reveals who they truly are. For my parents, money turned ordinary people into monsters. For me, money came after pain, and I chose to use it for good, not revenge, but to carry forward Grandpa's legacy. And most importantly, kindness does not make us weak. It is the greatest strength. Kindness lifted me each time I fell, kept my heart from hardening amid betrayal, led me to Jayla, to Eliam, to this life. I turned to my wife, kissed her forehead. Eliam ran back, hugging my legs. "Daddy, let's go home and make cookies. I'm hungry." I laughed, hoisted him onto my shoulders. "Yep. Let's make the cookies Great-Grandpa taught me long ago." We left the cemetery as the sun climbed high, chasing away the last winter chill. I walked lighter than ever, as if the final stone had been lifted from my heart. Only one message remained inside me, the one Grandpa etched with his life and death. Live kindly, live diligently, live with compassion. Because in the end, that is the greatest legacy one generation can leave the next. Not money, not houses, not fame. Just a heart that knows how to love. That is enough to change an entire life. Grandpa, I did it, and I will keep going.